unleash this arrow storm every single time. So I can't say I'm that surprised by the damage when you think about it in the context of the game. Let's get into game 2 though. LNG on our blue side now, banning the Graves and the Karma to start this one off.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what their first pick will be, because obviously we've seen this team really loves Volibear, so that's something I'd probably expect. But the Ashe definitely did a lot of work that game, and maybe could be something LNG go towards. It'd also be a big takeaway from Jiumeng, because it's been his most played champion and also his best champion by far this split, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely concur with that one, but the Kalista has been removed, so no more Jiumeng Kalista. With the way that game number 1 went, I can't say I'm that sad for WE here as the Volibear is the first lock in here. XX very likely to be going to that one once again.
I mean, even Flandre loves this, right? When we saw Flandre brought back in on the roster, he just picked this bear up twice in a row, did extremely well in lane, even picked up a game win on it, so not too surprised for LNG to go towards this, but I wonder what it signals they're going to go towards for AD carry, because, right, they banned Kalista, they know they're going to first pick Volibear, so 99.9% WE is going to pick the Ashe. Are they themselves now just going to go towards that Ezreal, or are we going to see Light pull out something new? Could also just obviously go towards things like the Kai'Sa, which we've seen before. Senna is still an AD carry that we sometimes see here in the LPL, but not all that much.
One AD carry that is available, that when we're playing against a team like WE that want to group up and have these close-knit skirmishes, Misfortune. Why not just pick Misfortune and just blast your ult across the entire team? It's not that meta right now, but she didn't really get nerfed or anything, so I see it as an option, but
we have seen teams.
I am a crazy person. So.
We have seen teams go towards Jhin against Ashe a lot as well, but to me, when LNG like to play for Light to be this big late game damage carry, I don't think it really suits LNG's playstyle. And I also like that LNG are just saying, hey, these are the things that worked last game. We're just going to pick them again.
Yep, I can certainly get behind that mentality, but 2 of their picks have been stolen away this time by WE, so we'll have to see where they pivot to this time around. Talked about the Jhin, it's being hovered, and there we go. It's locked in once again. But explain this to me, Lyric, because in my memory, historically, Ashe is a Jhin counter. How is this suddenly the other way around?
Honestly, Munchables, I'm not quite sure, because that's how it always was. It was always you would pick Ashe back into Jhin back in the day. Of course, Jhin has always been pretty strong in the laning phase, but that was kind of about it. He was big in that meta where him and Ashe were pretty much just swapped back and forth to be that global CC ult bots, but Jhin does fit at least thematically with what LNG want to do of this global pick comp, right? You can just open up the Jhin ult, have TF go in as well to follow up. You're going to have a damage dealer probably in jungle or top since we already have this Volibear.
Well, we do have similar levels of comfort here for WE. While they've stolen a couple of picks away from LNG, there's still very much picks that WE loves to play. The Tahm Kench ban that we talked about in between games has come through here from the side of WE. And I'm curious what LNG do now in the latter half of the draft to answer for things like this Renekton and to answer for the lack of Tahm Kench.
You would expect them to want a 4th pick Thresh, but I mean, if LNG don't ban Thresh on the next rotation, that'd actually be pretty surprising to me.
They've banned one jungler away from beishang, which we've seen beishang play Jarvan before. He's only played it once this split, but I remember him playing a ton in spring.
Clearly just wanted to dissuade the Jarvan Galio combo.
Yeah, again, there are like carry junglers available, and when we think of beishang, typically it has been carry junglers. I mean, his most obviously this split by far has been the Graves, but things like the Trundle as well available, that he can be that sort of pseudo frontline for the Ashe.
Yeah, and again, a lot's going to depend on what LNG bans here. So I actually do just expect Missing to go towards the Thresh again. I don't know why you wouldn't. The Tahm Kench is gone this time. It's obviously Missing's best champion. The thing that I will give credit to this pick is obviously the thing that Jhin struggles against is tanks. So just putting more tanks on your composition. Even TF, despite, sure, scaling up decently and having damage in the late game, isn't really a tank buster in his own right either.
I mean, even the damage that TF has in the late game is still burst damage,
exactly,
which tanks
right?
do exceptionally well against. So it's not ideal for LNG if they have to deal with a lot of tanks. Iwandy, he says, you know what, if I've not got Tahm Kench, all right, I'll just go for the other super defensive protector support.
And this just fits with Iwandy's style. Obviously also does pretty well up against the Leona in lane because she comes in, you just tag her with your passive, walk away. You can block the Enchanted Crystal Arrow as well, so I like what LNG put together so far. And
now we have a weird situation with LNG where they have 2 flex picks that XX and Flandre can just swap between this Sett and the Volibear. Who knows what they're going to go with until that final 20 seconds. On the other side, WE, they've just got to lock in their jungler, which it's not very often that we see a jungler as the final pick on red side here, but it's the Lee Sin for beishang.
Yep, so going to have a lot of early game pressure. Now we're going to need to see beishang in these lanes. Going towards top and jungle for LNG, I've actually seen Flandre spamming a lot of Sett these days, so I wouldn't be too surprised if they just keep it there. Obviously, Renekton is favored in both of these lane matchups early on, so I don't think it would make too much of a difference where you go with it. Volibear going to be extremely strong in these 1v1 duels inside the jungle as well, so I wouldn't expect it to swap last minute, but of course, we got 8 seconds left.
Yeah, I'm expecting XX just to be bringing this one forward, especially when it worked so well in game number 1, right? Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
His clear is also a bit better than Sett, so we've talked about many times that they're both very, like, they work in the jungle in similar ways, so just taking the one that clears better also makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very vocal on this broadcast about how much I despise Sett jungle. I think it's, generally speaking, pretty terrible. I just think that there are other junglers that do the same job just way better, so I much prefer to have this Volibear in the jungle. Put Sett in the top lane where he belongs.
It's going to be interesting because Sett's not a top laner we really see anymore at all. Nope. But Flandre is always willing to pull out weird things. Not that Sett top is that weird, but obviously is a bit of a rarity these days.
So we'll have to see how it's going to go. But LNG once again with a bit of a off-the-wall composition here with the Jhin coming on through, the Twisted Fate in the mid lane once more here. But Flandre with a lot less carry potential than what he had in game number 1. WE, they're doing WE things. This is exactly the kind of draft you expect out of them. But the exact same style of draft didn't work in the first game of the series, and we're about to find out if LNG has WE's number here.
Yeah, things have kind of swapped to where now we would expect that WE are the ones that'll have topside pressure. So I want to see what they're going to do around that. But, you know, with the Braum against Leona matchup for LNG, especially once we get more towards the level 5 and 6 mark, it's really going to sway in the side of LNG to where Braum will just always be able to ignore the Leona and obviously Lycan have a lot of early game damage, especially off of that first back.
So we're going to see an early recall there. The Kentucky Fried Shot feeling like there's a couple of spikes for WE here, but generally speaking, the Colonel's liking what LNG have brought to the table.
I'd agree with this as well. I feel like when we look at WE's comp, has a lot of early game power, which is why we see the Colonel favoring WE early on. You have a much better way of getting into lanes this time around with the Lee Sin, who obviously a very strong ganker, so you can look towards top. You can combo well mid. Pretty much any of the 3 lanes, right? You have hard CC in all of your lanes to set up that Lee Sin damage, to where LNG, once again, going to play a bit of a slower first few levels and wait for those level 6 marks to come out.
And we've got Unsealed Spellbook on both sides of the mid lane once again, so be aware that there can be things like the Smite steals, things like TPs that you're not expecting and whatnot available for both of the mid laners. I'm curious how this top lane is going to go as well, because when you think back to the start of spring, Morgan actually made some of his biggest plays, some of the big plays that he kind of made his name on here in the LPL, on this set pick himself.
Yeah, so going to have a throwback of playing out this matchup, of course. This matchup was always Renekton favored even back then, but as we see now, Flandre has ways of just pushing the lane, especially when you do end up starting your W, but taking the E hero for these early trades, of course. If you don't remember, Sett's passive is extremely strong, having the stronger punch with your right hand, so you feel fine just trading autos at level 1.
Yeah, and also the other part of his passive where you have insane health regen. I mean, we just saw he was down to almost 200, and he's well above half HP once again with a pot in the works there as well, so you're more than happy to take these very aggressive trades and heal back up off of it.
And then after this, once he does hit that level 3 mark, right, you're going to have that Haymaker. You'll pretty much just always be able to Haymaker the wave if you want and ignore the Renekton. But, ooh, LNG actually pinching around.
Is beishang looking to make a play? LNG have the answer. Flandre knows exactly what is going on because beishang was spotted. And this is quite a lot of time wasted here for beishang. He's going to be still sticking in the tri-rush.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised he's just going to back off. But Flandre is giving a lot of respect to this, so props to beishang. The gank setup should still be there even once he's done with Krugs if he wants to look for a return gank. Obviously just pretty standard from him going for a single target clear towards his top half of the map. And unfortunate for Flandre that he did push up the wave that far. Wasn't able to get the bounce back.
So we've got, once again, a relatively slow early game, which is kind of what you expect with these kinds of compositions. Once again, the mid laners very much looking for a level 6 power spike. This time around, though, with beishang on the Lee Sin, you can expect a little bit more early aggression. Back in spring, we saw beishang focusing a lot around getting kills in this mid lane to then transition elsewhere. Like, we saw so many times the Echo Pantheon combination where it was all about him and Teacherma getting a lead and then transitioning that. With a Galio in the mid lane, you can still look for that sort of style because Lee Sin has plenty of damage. This isn't going to be stunned in this bottom side, but Jiumeng able to trade some of that damage back. Yeah,
nice job by missing to find his E straight onto light. So trade evens out in the end, as this trade typically does. But I also like going back that you highlighted beishang playing through mid, because Lee Sin is an early game jungler, but you do lose out a lot of duels to current meta champions like the Trundle, like the Volibear. So it's a lot more about early game ganks, not necessarily just blind aggression, not just invading the enemy jungle and looking for these 1v1s.
But we have seen many, many times when teams pick up this Lee Sin, they don't always necessarily respect the amount of aggression that typically does come with this champion. And sometimes we do see these farming Lee Sins, which is usually a bit of a recipe for disaster, but can sometimes work out with the late game kicks. But beishang is not really the kind of player that you think of as a late game Lee Sin, right? He's the kind of player that is usually very proactive.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, right, he did look for the early gank on top, and even mid, it's always going to be dicey if you gank and then Volibear is there for the counter gank, because you still have a ton of great CC. Pretty decent 2v2 on the side of LNG, right? If Lee Sin comes in, Maple gets the gold part, XX is in there to follow him with the Q. It'll go extremely bad, extremely fast for the side of WE, so I think he will just look towards top once again, and then you could start looking towards bot at that level 6 mark.
Well, XX is looking towards top as well. We've got a trade going on already as Morgan will get out and takes a bit of a hit from the Haymaker off the back of the trade. But XX decides this is not something he wants here. Morgan is just going to be able to freeze this wave for himself.
Yeah, exactly. So WE probably setting up for what we just talked about of, hey, well, beishang's on the top half of the map. Flandre you would expect to TP back right now, and then beishang can just look for an easy gank on top. Though, Flandre does have a ward.
Flandre is also winning out these trades very hard to start this series off, or to start this game off, sorry. And you can see that reflected a tiny bit in the CS lead, but actually Morgan's doing fine.
I was going to say, to be fair, Flandre did just get a reset off, so coming back full HP.
Hang on, we've got a fight on our hands. Flandre went way too deep for this play. Oh, the Haymaker's not going to come through because he's just CC'd until he dies.
Yeah, that was a pretty confusing one coming out from Flandre.
I don't get why he went under the tower. I was hoping you'd be able to explain it to me, but to me, it just looked like he, even in a 1v1 there, I don't think he's going to be able to finish Morgan off.
I feel like he might have been able to finish him off, and the play made sense. Stop talking. We're going to get some action.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get it.
But, right, he got the good reset, comes back with an item advantage, comes back with full HP, wins out on the trade. In the sole 1v1 dive, I feel like he might have been able to pull it off, but I mean, beishang was topside, not that he could necessarily know that, but even the global ult coming out from Teacherma.
The key thing I wasn't sure about off the start of that trade was, obviously, Flandre had hit level 6. I don't think Morgan had quite hit level 6 before the play. So
no, he didn't.
Dominus wouldn't have been in play there, which is the advantage Flandre was essentially trying to punish. But WE doesn't usually let you get away with plays like that, and now, with this advantage, beishang moves towards the bottom side of the map. This is going to be the Cloud Drain take.
And we're going to see what happened earlier on. Q lands onto Jiumeng. Leona then goes in, and okay, they just trade a bit of damage and they back off. Thanks, Observer.
And we're going to replay of a small trade. So hey, at least they are auto-attacking each other.
They're dealing damage.
They use their abilities there, which is good to see.
Hitting some skill shots.
Do you know, there is not a single World Championship team that I have seen that didn't use their abilities in auto-attack. So these are really promising signs for both squads.
Oh, have you seen any World Champions, miss skill shots?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Quite a bit.
Many times. Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Yeah, well,
glad we're on the same
I'm not
page.
going to lie. I don't think either of these teams are particularly in the conversation for World Champion right now.
Are you not believing in LNG? We had this conversation last time we casted LNG together.
It was my lack of faith. Well, I actually really like WE, so I'm making sure my faith is at minimum here for
those
LNG.
of you who don't listen to LNG casts regularly, LNG's ability to win is directly correlated with how much Munchables believes in them.
Which is why they've been on such
before.
a terrible win streak. Because, I'm not going to lie, I've been pretty unimpressed by this team this split.
But you know what is impressive is LNG's bot lane getting off this roam first, which is likely going to secure this Rift Herald. And you can see WE want to contest. All of WE are coming, but Jiumeng is not here yet.
Yeah, beishang not willing to follow up on the Sonic Wave here, so XX at least gets that for himself, but just used everything, so forced now to flash over the wall. But you know what? LNG, they got it. They got the Herald, they got away with it. It cost them 1 flash. I think they're going to be happy with that.
Yeah, they are going to feel good, but now WE have a small window where they can put some pressure down with Maple and XX expected to reset. So they're actually going to use this pressure. They're invading the red buff right now, going to put some vision down. Maybe going to look for a pick.
We'll see if they are going to look for a pick or not. beishang is here, just waiting off to the side, and it will be down to Iwandy and Light how much they are predicting some kind of play along these lines. Because let's bear in mind, this is a Leona from Missing. Missing is not afraid to dive towers. We literally saw some clips of that earlier on. Iwandy knows something's up, drops a ward in the brush, and that is going to deter the play in the end. There's going to be at least a play going over to WE.
Yep, still all of LNG are here. Even Maple's hovering over with the Destiny, so this is what we expected for the side of WE, right? We said, hey, they're going to play around the bot lane once they hit that level 6 point. Made even more sense once they did do that flash from XX and had to hover bot regardless.
We do have a call coming out here for Light as well, so you can expect that LNG aren't necessarily going to be looking for fights in the short term because had to go for those Swifties, didn't have enough for the BF sword on the recall, which when you're playing a champion like Jhin, for example, it really sucks not getting the early BF sword, so acknowledging that he's not going to be fighting anytime soon, so get the call and look to farm up.
Yeah, and when we talk about where LNG when he's the Rift Herald, this is always the interesting conversation to me because I always say this every cast pretty much, use it mid, and we actually potentially see XX using it mid here, especially when you're up against this global ultimate coming out from the Galio, push him into that tier 2 turret, give your global mid laner more room to make plays, and you'll have more vision of where Teacherma is, and LNG go for it.
Yep, Teacherma will be able to clear it, but you know what? That's a couple of plates going into Maple's pockets, a little bit closer to finishing that tower off as well. 3 minutes until the plates fall. And you'd expect that's the point at which LNG will be able to finish that tier 1 off the mid lane. So nicely done here by LNG off the back of them being able to grab that Herald basically for free as well.
And it looks like WE are going to potentially look for a dive right now because look where Teacherma is on the map. They have a wave. Light is by himself. But Light respecting.
Yep, steps back. It does mean that a plate does go the way of Jiumeng. So ultimately, when we look at the Rift Herald here, we've traded 2 plates in the mid lane for 2 plates in the bottom lane. So it's a net even on the gold, but LNG have found themselves a lead elsewhere, and it comes down to these CS numbers across the board.
You know, another play that I feel like W have been really good at making with this Ashe that would be nice to see this game as well is just have Jiumeng hover towards mid, chain that Enchanted Crystal Arrow into a Galio taunt while beishang's are on the corner as well. Feels like you can set up a very easy pick, not only on a squishy champion like the Twisted Fate, but also attack the global pressure that LNG have.
Well, beishang is hanging around here, but it's just going to be to clear the minion away. But
the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, Bunchables! The Enchanted Crystal
I'm
Arrow!
on board, mate. I'm on board, but I know you think that I do, but I don't have any influence over this game. My faith in LNG won't influence anything. My belief that Jiumeng
Why do you have that headset? You're not talking to them right now?
I'm talking to you right now. This is I'm not your conscience. This is I'm another person, Larry. This is a separate entity.
I thought you were my conscience when you made that amazing picture yesterday. I feel like something my conscience would want.
Your conscience can do Photoshop? It's kind of impressive, honestly. Missing is going to be rooted here, but beishang is on the scene to answer. Iwandy with an early... in fact, we've got globals, we've got TPs, we've got a fight on our hands. WE the wants to start things off as Iwandy goes down here, and XX forced away, but that's going to be Morgan just destroyed by Flandre. XX is on the wrong side of town, though. He's taken down as beishang gets himself a double kill. That's a nice taunt out of Teacherma. And Flandre, Haymaker's going to be on cooldown here. No, it's not. He gets himself a second kill of the fight, but the flash isn't going to be good enough. Triple kill here for beishang. WE don't look like they're done just yet. Taunt is going to be out of range, though. And Teacherma, he's got a stopwatch, but he's going to be rooted. No, it was too early. Oh, it's all gone wrong, and Teacherma somehow gets away with it.
And that fight was as even as possible, because had Light just, played that slightly better, it would have been a 3-for-3. But overall, that fight was all over the place. We saw them just posturing on the bot side for a 3v3. I was really confused when beishang actually initially queued onto Iwandy, popped up his shield, but with that cooldown down, it gave Missing the opportunity to follow through and just kills going down to both sides. And I'm glad we get a replay.
This is why I love WE, because the second it starts, it really starts.
Yeah, and we see LNG looking for the engage after the Lee Sin Q coming in. Light forced out early, which is how we see WE be able to pick up some of these kills. Nice job by Maple to follow it up, and it turning out to be a 1-for-1 at this stage. XX in a really bad position. But LNG keep going. We saw the Jhin ult come out. Flandre, well, that's all that matters, I guess. Teacherma almost went down too. He didn't go down. There you go.
It was very exciting. But that is going to be a second Drake here for WE now. And granted, they are down in gold, but going pretty much even in that fight, finding themselves 1 kill advantage there. And now finding a Drake off the back of it. Second game in a row here. We're going to have an Ocean Soul on our hands. So WE right now are in the driver's seat this time around.
Yep, but as we see, plate gold is pretty much even. Maple and XX benefiting on one side, Jiumeng on the other. Now I want to see how these teams play around this Rift Herald. As we see right now, LNG do have topside prio, so they could play for this, but Missing is already coming off a base, so WE will have a numbers advantage on topside first.
Now I'm going to see XX grabbing himself that Scuttle Crab, but I don't think beishang cares that much. Sonic Wave on in, and he'll start this Herald off. Teacherma's already here, and you can see Jiumeng and Missing moving over. Light has only just left the base. In fact, he's not even left the base. He's decided, you know what, I'm going to the bot lane. Forget the Rift Herald. We don't care.
Yep, they realized that WE did have the tempo advantage on that, especially with Missing coming from base so early. We saw Iwandy start heading up, but it seems like they realized, hey, there's no way to answer this play. I do like their transition straight into the 1-3-1 right now. Just going to have Light and Iwandy answering waves, but oh. I'm actually glad Flandre's getting out of here. This would not have been pretty had he tried to defend this turret.
Yeah, this is not defendable right here. beishang has the Herald if he wants, but he does not need to use the Herald on this tower. This is just going to be an easy take. And now, does mean WE get the first tower of the game, and they could look towards the second one with this Herald. Maple trying to even things up at the bottom lane, but Teacherma's got plenty of wave clear to work with.
Yeah, we do see the rest of LNG hovering to try to put some pressure on him, make him back off, and that is going to be enough for Maple to be able to take this turret.
Nicely done here by LNG.
Oh,
no,
no it's not.
he's
well,
back. Last possible second, he baited you, Lyric.
Yes, he did.
You can never predict Teacherma.
I'm just saying, Teacherma doing well, realizing, hey, they're hovering. They could die at me. I'm going to back off a little bit. Waited about 5 seconds, said, they're probably not here anymore. Nice proto belt forward, and yeah, he got me.
It was like me right before I've made all of the bad decisions in my life. Like, here are all the logical things that I should be aware of. It'll probably be okay. And then he goes back in. And you know what? He got away with it. And that's the power of winging it, boys and girls.
Yes, it is. And, also the power of Missing now hovering, but Maple not going to disrespect. Actually walking all the way back around. Taking the safest route possible. Walking past this Krug's going to be heading towards the mid lane. I do expect him to head back bot the second Galio is shown pushing the wave, though.
Well, he's just shown pushing the wave, and Maple does not care. So maybe LNG are going to make some kind of play towards the top side here.
Yeah. Are they?
I don't know. They have all been spotted here. Well, Destiny's going to be used. They're going for Morgan. Morgan's in trouble once again. Morgan is just getting cyberbullied this game. Maple's underneath the tower. Can he turn this one around? Stopwatch ruins everything. But Morgan, he flashes over. He survives. Now WE gets to make a play in the mid lane.
Yeah, now WE getting mid lane turret as well as bot lane turret. They don't pick up the kill on top side. They just lose out on a bunch of pressure across the map.
You know what? Look, if there's one thing I've complained about with LNG, it's lack of proactivity. So, was the play good? Did it work? No. But did they do something? Yes, they did. And I'm okay with that.
Okay, guys. Well, Munchables improved plays is, I guess, all we can ask for in this game. So, gold is still even. Not anything is possible. I'd say I even do slightly like the comp. LNG has more for the late game better, just for the fact that it could play out the 3-lane setup, despite the fact that it does have a Jhin. It does have a pretty nice spread of damage as well. But I feel like we might be going to a game 3. It's my intuition.
I have a feeling that you are correct, Mr. Lyric. And I had that feeling before this game, or even the draft had begun. I saw LNG win game number 1, and I was like, this is a 3-game series. I can just feel it, because...
Another fun...
I mean, you are right. My lack of faith in LNG really is showing strong.
Another fun fact for those of you out there is, when Munchables casts are the days of 6 games.
Yes,
so,
they really are.
If you're watching when Munchables is live, just count on a 6-game day.
It's going to be a long one. I can feel it. The second series as well, Rogue Warriors. They're going to take a game off LGD. LGD will still win.
2 games, Munchables.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But nice job by WE using their pressure. And the key thing here is we can see Morgan just pushed out top, is hovering towards the bottom side. So, of course, WE going to be able to look for this invade on LNG's jungle.
So, teleport comes through here from Teacherma, just to make sure this play can happen.
There is an LNG ward behind WE, though, if Flandre wants to flank.
Oh, they're going to make the play here. beishang Guster at least try and secure the Dragon, because we're going to have a fight on our hands. But Dragon actually not going to be committed to. Flandre came in, got a pull over everyone. Teacherma knock-up is going to land across the team here. beishang got the Dragon. WE could back away with this one, but it looks like they want more off the back of this play. Teacherma's going in. Gets the taunt onto Maple and forces that flash out. I think that might be everything. Root, though, onto Morgan, but he dashes out towards the rest of his team. Safeguard shield from beishang, and everyone's just going to get out of the way of the 4th shot.
Yeah, and overall, that was really confusing. Flandre found the flank, but obviously none of the members able to follow up. Unfortunate for XX, he was so far away, he actually had to ult into the Dragon Pit, so not able to use that in an offensive capacity. WE not having great follow-up once the initial Ashe and Leona engage is gone, so they try for Teacherma to find a taunt, does force Maple's flash, but then LNG actually have some decent re-engage with the Jhin ult, but still WE able to get out, and you know, I'm making it sound like a lot happened, but let's be honest, no kills were had, so at the end of the day, W get a Dragon.
Look, just because nobody died doesn't mean nothing happened, Lyric. We're a macro-oriented league here in the LPL. We are not known for our action-packed, chaotic games. We are known for our slow, methodical macro. And WE, a team renowned for playing safe styles, for playing around towers, not ever going over-aggressive or making fights just for the sake of fighting.
You know, I do want to say, I love that LPL and LPL teams embrace, like, team identities and styles and like, don't have the accessibility to, like, Western, like, audience peer pressure or analysis pressure to, like, play the perfect game, because that would take out so much of the fun of LPL.
It really would. And Flandre is about to feel the fun of the LPL right now, because he's in a 2v1. beishang's here as well, and with no Haymaker, he goes down. XX came to try and help his top laner, but he might have been off more than he can chew, and Volibear can chew a lot, let me tell you. Because Teacherma now coming over the wall as well. Arrow hits onto XX. Blast Cone, though, can be procced by Maple, so he gets out with his life.
And yeah, you just summed it up quite well. WE finding a great pick onto Flandre from just pushing out so far to try to get some pressure onto WE. The fact that there's no Dragon up doesn't feel like too much is going to happen. Both of these comps definitely want to be square in the face of a neutral objective. I guess LNG technically could play out, you know, the 1-3-1 as we've talked about, but when you're behind, not possible, as we've just seen.
Yeah, that's not going to work out. And especially when beishang has all of the kills on Lee Sin. He's more than happy to come and punish a 1-3-1 for anyone that steps out of position. Morgan gets rooted, but he slides on out of that. beishang will have to safeguard, but he's stunned up. No, he's fine.
That was so close, though, right? Had Iwandy ulted a second sooner, he gets knocked up. Braum passive now proc. LNG does have a lot of burst. Jhin, very bursty champion, Twisted Fate as well, but the item discrepancy right now where Jiumeng does have 2 items compared to Light's 1.5, which I guess to be fair, IE is a pretty expensive item, so.
Yeah, and like if you're going to have 1.5 items, like a BF sword item and then another BF sword is a pretty good 1.5.
Exactly, yeah.
He's still going to hit like a freight train, especially on that 4th auto.
So I am kind of doing Light 30, and Light, I apologize.
I can do this. Hang on, we've got a 1v1 between the AD carries and Jiumeng!
No, I mean, where are his items?
It's beautiful!
Yeah, overall,
look,
great help from Jiumeng.
Items aside, like, Jhin is not a 1v1 AD carry.
No,
That's not how this champion works.
No, he's not. That is not how Jhin works. Definitely relies on the team to play around it. As we've been seeing,
where is Ashe?
And as we're seeing in the LPL, Jhin is really just being utilized mostly for his ultimate at this point, setting up for these turns or long-range picks, or even engages to set up a lot of like champions that have pseudo-engage, like the Volibear that can, you know, get the movement speed from the Q and then jump in with the ultimate.
Well, one thing that you can always rely on with Light is he's open to feedback. He heard you complaining that he only had 1.5 items, so he's immediately head back to the shop, finished off an Infinity Edge. Just for you, Lyric.
I'm glad that, you know,
generous guy.
After hearing things like, you know, just don't gotta make mistakes and you just gotta play well, he accepts my very fair criticism of just buy items.
Yeah, dude, just have more gold.
Yeah.
That's real world advice as well, by the way. Into Iwandy we go as Morgan is going to be blocked with a lot of shielded damage here. So nicely done on this Braum just to ruin the engage. Call going to do a whole lot of nothing here. But drag it up in 15 seconds and XX, that is not the place you want to be. I don't think he was spotted by the whole shot, though.
No. Yeah, because beishang could have wrapped around. He had the ultimate available as well if the rest of the members wanted to follow up.
W were like, where on earth is this bear? Turns out it was just in the middle of the lane. The stealthiest place possible. Iwandy once again caught, and that is an 80 carry. Taunted and taken out. Iwandy chased out and cut down as well as a double kill comes through from Morgan. And this is already done in favor of WE. Flandre with some good damage onto beishang, but it can't finish the kill. Now with Maple stunned and a triple kill on the Croc. Morgan, once again, the WWE superstar.
Morgan great, and even Teacherma, so decisive on the Galio, flashes forward, runs right past the Braum, gets a great taunt onto Light, and just set up for W to pick up the soul. And now they're going to come off some resets, and hey, we know it's just a matter of time before they start baiting for this Baron and force LNG to fight them. And only a slight gold lead, but still, with Ocean Soul, it definitely feels like it's a matter of time.
And Lyric, how many times have you and I talked about Morgan on Renekton in Dragon Fights?
And we look at this, I still think Teacherma beautiful to start this off and find it for Morgan to then follow up. Slice and dices to get that other kill as well. Even the rest of W, beishang playing well on the backside and missing doing a lot to zone the key members of LNG as well. Morgan just a big benefactor of it all.
Morgan was the sole reason that... No, okay. I'm kidding, of course. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Teacherma and beishang setting everything up there, missing, able to chase down on the final kill. 3-10 on the scoreboard. And WE... I mean, this is how WE wins games. It's not very often that you see a close WE game, to be quite honest. They either body people in fights or get bodied in the fights. This time they're bodying.
Yes, they are. And their comp right now is amazing for turning off Baron. So it doesn't matter, you know, whatever LNG chooses to do. You have the Leona, you have the Enchanted Crystal Arrow from the Ashe, you have Galio as well who can just run in, find these taunts. This comp is made for turning off a Baron. Yep,
Destiny used here by Maple, and that is going to be one global burn, but I don't think WE care right now. They are finally going to commit to this one. Teacherma's ult across 3 members. He can follow up with a taunt as well. Jiumeng's in trouble in the back line, though. Flandre is there. Haymaker comes out. Jiumeng's gone on this one. But as is the entire team of LNG, XX can't finish this one off. beishang survives, and XX is out of there.
And if any of you saw that fight when it started with Missing going in, Light does 0 damage to Missing. Actually, probably does negative damage to Missing. Morgan then jumps in as well. We see Light, I think it was his 4th shot at that point, still does nothing, gets instantly deleted. Now XX needs to pray for a steal. Yeah. And XX has, oh god, XX.
He knows it. He knows this is donezo. He's going to try.
He doesn't have Smite yet.
He'll
Smite soon.
He's got his ult. That does like 200 not damage.
I love the missing pinks coming out on him after he just walks away.
Oh dear. Well, there we go. That's going to be Baron for WE. You said that they were going to bait the Baron. It wasn't even a bait. They were just like, well, we're going to do this, and unless you fight us immediately, we're going to kill you. And
that's a bait. That's exactly what a bait is.
But like, it wasn't a bait because they were just hard committed to the Baron.
But it was a bait. Look at this. They did Baron. They forced him to come fight them. They turned
until they didn't commit. All right.
I mean,
I stand by my incorrect statement, Lyric.
At this point, like, they have the key items on the players that need those, to have those items. We saw that they got onto Light not able to kill the front line of WE, and that was one of the reasons we highlighted the fact of, hey, this is probably why Missing went for this Leona pick.
And Light, suddenly feeling pretty heavy.
Yes, he is. And everything coming down to... Actually, no, I was going to say Maple. Maple has 3 items, but playing out this composition from behind is extremely hard, and you really need to rely on a misstep from WE, which WE are pretty consistently grouped up as 5, or even now you can just be grouped up as 4 because you have the Galio ultimate. And LNG will never just be able to run straight into WE at this point in the game.
So I have a question for you, Lyric.
Yeah.
What does it take then for LNG to go back to Chenlun here instead of Flandre? Because Flandre is not having a good game.
I'm just going to guess it's just going to happen. Because that's how a lot of these teams do it is, hey, they lose the game and they're like, well, we lost. Let's put in this other guy.
I mean, it's logical,
Hey,
I guess.
I'm not saying I agree with it, but it feels like there are teams, LNG, Rogue Warriors, who else? Another one on the top of your head? Those are the two that jump out to me, at least.
FPX and Spring.
Yeah, FPX and Spring. Vici did it a bit last split, but this split they've been better.
Yeah, they feel pretty committed now. Speaking of committed, we got WE that are very much committed to this tower, and LNG committing to a fight to punish it. Maple onto the back line, but there's nothing he can do about this. So Jiumeng getting pretty low here. Maple can get one more auto. There's a Haymaker. Once again, they've killed the AD carry, but everybody else is still alive. Light continuing to do absolutely nothing during these fights. Finally gets closed down on 2, and I think that one might be the game, Lyric.
Yep, and WE drafting this sort of comp with Morgan on the Renekton, as you highlighted, beishang on an early game jungler, and look what happens.
I love it. I love seeing beishang on something that can do damage, because that is how WE succeeds here. 19-5 with an Ocean Soul. A pretty convincing win here in Game 2 for WE. So we're going to 3 maps, boys and girls. Buckle in.
And WE